Hi everyone, I'm Sri. Thank you for having me today. So today I'm going to be talking about product pricing principles. And we're going to help answer two questions. The first is, how do I come up with a price? And the second is, what makes people buy? And a little bit about me before we kind of go into the presentation. I have 10 years of product experience ranging from startups to big companies like Disney, focused on mobile, video, and social experiences. And currently I'm at Evite, where I am the head of mobile product and have launched in-app purchase and subscription for the first time on the apps. And I've also led price testing for the company. So that's really a great experience that I can share with you today as you kind of think about pricing for your own products. So next, we're going to talk about how to create a price structure and a few principles to keep in mind when you're coming up with a price structure for your products. So the first and what might be the most important is to remember to price differently for different customers to maximize value. And I think one of the best industries for this in terms of an example is the airline industry. They have created different classes from first class all the way down to basic economy. Even though everyone is really paying for getting from point A to point B, they're able to create these different experiences in these different classes to provide unique value to each of these different customer segments and also maximize revenue and value for themselves. So this is really interesting to me because I actually learned that on a typical transatlantic flight, the revenue generated from all of the first class passengers is often more than all of the economy passengers combined, which really speaks to the importance of creating these different classes to meet to different customer needs. And you might be asking, well, why don't I just create a flight with just all first class passengers? And the reason is there's not enough demand or people that are willing to pay that kind of price for a seat. But instead of just having first class seats and economy seats, airlines have done this really well where they have like business class, premium economy, regular economy, and basic economy. And that allows the airlines to maximize value for each of these different segments and also create a differentiated experience for customers. The next principle to keep in mind is it's really important to price based on user needs, not features. So I think we've all seen examples like that on the left where we see a bunch of different tiers like standard and premium and a bunch of features kind of going down the list on those different rows. And we don't really know which tier I should pick as a consumer. Do I pick standard? Do I pick premium? That name doesn't really tell me a lot about what's included. And I have to do a lot of work to read through those features and see which tier makes the most sense to me. And even if I pick a tier, like let's say in this case I pick premium, I might buy a lot of features that I don't really need, or might just be missing out on one feature from professional that I really want. So a better way to do this is really to price based on user needs and create packages based on user needs and use cases. So Strava is a running app and they do a great job of this. So they actually sell a training pack if you're really focused on training for a big race, or if you're really concerned about safety, they sell that. And then they also have an analysis pack if you're really interested in analyzing your previous runs. So by just looking at the name of these different packages, you know which one you need to buy, and it has a bunch of features that make sense for you. And from the business perspective, what this will do is really increase conversion, and people will be more easily able to identify what they need to buy and be more satisfied with their product. So the next principle you'd want to consider when creating a pricing structure is, do I create one-time purchases? Do I offer subscriptions? Do I offer a mix of both? And I would encourage you to definitely consider a subscription. App Annie has shared that in-app subscriptions contribute to 96% of spend in the top non-gaming apps. And the reason why it's so successful and so dominant in the market today is it really allows for a reliable source of renewable revenue and for you to be able to create a longer term relationship with your customers. But it's also important to remember that you focus on the retention of users who are your subscribers. in addition to just acquisition. Because to get people to renew, they need to be able to see the value in your subscription. You need to communicate on a regular basis the ongoing value that they're getting, new features and benefits that you're adding to the subscription through email or push, and make sure that they're satisfied with the product so that they do renew. Another point to consider is a lot of times subscriptions offer exclusive features to differentiate themselves from the one-time purchases. I think it's kind of table stakes that most subscriptions offer kind of unlimited access to the product and kind of an all-you-can-eat model versus the free version or the one-time purchases. But if you're able to offer features, that will help differentiate the subscription even more and nudge people into that. So like I mentioned at the beginning, I currently work at Evite, and we have launched a subscription called Evite Pro. And Evite is really kind of focused on creating digital invitations for different events like birthday parties or graduation. And we launched Evite Pro, which is targeting a new segment, which is really small businesses, for people that are having multiple events a year for their business. And we added 2 features to differentiate the subscription from the one-time purchase, allowing you to invite up to 2,500 guests for an event and be able to check in guests with attendance tracking. These are features that make sense for that small business audience and kind of differentiates it more from our consumer offering. So even if you're a small business and you might be having 1 or 2 events a year, if it's a really big or important event, you may purchase a subscription just because of that feature. So that's why it's a really great idea to consider adding features to your subscription. The other thing that's really good to consider if you are launching a subscription is to offer multiple tiers of the subscription or different ways to pay for the subscription. So you could do things like different levels of the subscription, but you could also offer like monthly versus annual pricing. And that does a couple of things. If you look at the example on the right from Evite, if we just had the annual subscription and the one-time purchase, you're debating between, do I pay $15 for this one-time invitation, or do I get kind of unlimited invitations for the year for $250? And that's a really big gap in price. And just so like the airlines did, something that I did was create kind of intermediate option of a 3-month subscription for $80. So that allows people who are willing to spend more than $15, maybe interested in subscription, but can't commit to that $250. The second thing that does is it shifts the question away from, do I buy a one-time purchase or do I buy a subscription, to which subscription do I buy, because I'm given more choice. So offering more options with the subscription, makes it more digestible for customers, and you'll see more success. So the next half of the webinar, I want to share some principles to keep in mind, once you've created your pricing structure, but then trying to understand behavior on why people buy or why people don't buy. So the first principle I want to share with you today is really the power of free. So, I think all of us really enjoy free things. And if you're offering a subscription, a free trial is a really great thing to consider when offering your subscription. And the reason is it allows people to enjoy the benefits of the subscription without any risk. And the idea is that they've been using these features during the trial period, they see the value of it, and they're willing to pay for it even after the free trial is over. And Google has actually shared some really interesting data that people are actually most likely to pay within your app immediately after downloading it. I had thought, it might be a couple of months after they've been using the product so they can get familiar with it, but that's not actually the case. And so here's actually another example from Strava, which we shared earlier, that does a good job of this. So they actually, as part of your onboarding and registration flow, have this kind of modal that says, hey, the first month's on us. You can start a free trial. There's a clear call to action. And it's a really easy and digestible way to kind of try the subscription at the beginning of your journey with this product. And the power of free doesn't have to just be a free trial. It can also be done at the feature level as well. So Tinder, which is I think is one of the most profitable apps in the App Store and Play Store, has done this very well through their super like feature. So this feature allows users to be able to super like somebody, and they claim that you'll triple your chances of matching with them. But rather than just making this a subscription feature or having to pay for it, they actually allow all users, including users who don't pay anything, to use one of these super likes for free. And that's a really effective acquisition tool into the subscription, or being able to purchase some of these super likes a la carte, which they offer, like packs of 3, 5, or 10, or allowing you to be a subscriber and get up to 5 a day, because you can see the value that you get out of it. If I use this feature and I match with somebody that I really like, I'm more likely to buy some more in the future, or even subscribe, versus you just saying that this feature is valuable. Like, I personally have had that experience and been able to use it. Another example is from my time at Tastemade, which is a digital food and travel media startup. We allowed people to save up to 10 recipes for free. And then more than that, they had to subscribe. And this, again, is a very similar strategy of allowing people to see the value of this kind of paid feature, but putting the paywall a little bit down the line until we've seen that you've got enough value out of it, and we think that you're likely to subscribe. And so that was a great acquisition vehicle for us. The next couple of principles I want to share are around social proof and urgency. And social proof is really just saying, if customers or your friends say something positive about a product or negative, it's going to weigh a lot more than you as a business just saying that this product is great, right? It's going to create more credibility. So for the first example I have up there with the quotes, this is an example from Evite Pro, which I talked about a little bit earlier. As I mentioned, this was like a new space for us, kind of targeting small businesses. And by adding these quotes from small businesses who would use the product, we help establish credibility that, hey, as a small business owner, I can use it. This travel manager used it, this realtor used it, and we're able to find value out of it. And so I think it can work for me too. Another great company that's done this really well is Booking.com. So they actually show the remaining inventory for a hotel that you're looking at and how many people have actually booked it in the last few hours. And so if I'm looking at this hotel, to me, it's like, hey, this is a really hot property. I should move on it quickly so I don't lose out. There's only a few rooms left, and a lot of people have been booking it in the past few hours. So that helps drive urgency and can really improve conversion. Another great way to drive urgency is by offering limited time deals. So like I mentioned previously, Google has shared after you download the app is the time most people are likely to buy. Reflectly, which is a self-reflection app, actually offers a one-time free trial offer only during the sign-up process. So rather than being like, hey, look, maybe I'll poke around and decide later if I want to sign up for the subscription, this creates urgency. It's like, hey, I don't want to miss out on this free trial offer. Let me do it now. So creating urgency is another great way to help increase purchase and conversion. So the next principle I want to share is around fairness. So I think we all remember this old Uber surge pricing where they would show you how much you were overpaying, like it's 2x, 4x, 5x what I should be paying. And if you're like me, you would just switch to like a competitor app like Lyft and see if it was cheaper. But now they've done away with that. And the interesting thing is I don't think they've actually changed their pricing at all. They just haven't communicated it to you in terms of how much you're overpaying. So it doesn't feel like you're getting ripped off as much, but it's a really important change that they made in terms of the UI and how they're communicating that pricing. Another example that's really great to share here is actually from JCPenney. And it's a little bit ironic because they actually set out this campaign to be really fair. And they said, we're going to do away with sales. We're going to do away with coupons. We're just going to have a flat everyday price. So you don't have to worry about, being here during a sale or having a coupon to get the best deal. But it really backfired on them, and they reversed course pretty quickly because customers liked getting a good deal. They liked saying, hey, I got this 80% off. They liked the enjoyment of redeeming a coupon at the store. So it's really important to keep that in mind and offer deals when you can to attract users. The one caveat I will say to that is it's important not to offer too many deals, because what will happen is you will attract these deal seekers who are just there for the deal and then will leave, or people won't make a purchase unless they get a deal since they're so accustomed to getting them. And I think a lot of the meal delivery companies like Blue Apron have been victim to this, where people just use it for the deal and then they leave. And ways you can do to mitigate this is offering deals, very contextual and at a limited time. So like the example I shared previously from Reflectly, where they offer it only after, only through the sign up process, can help mitigate that. So the next principle I want to share is relativity. And this principle is really just understanding that your prices don't exist in isolation and people are always comparing them to make the best decision that is for them. And this example is from the Wall Street Journal. They offered two different subscriptions. They offered a web subscription for $59 and a print and web subscription for $125. And what they did is they offered a third option, which is a print-only subscription for $125. Now, how many of you would pick that print-only option? And I don't think many of you, right? Because it's the same price as the print and web subscription. So for the same price, you're able to get the web subscription as well. And so if you look at kind of before and after, adding this third tier, it shouldn't really change behavior because it's not really a valid option. But what it did is it actually tripled the number of users that picked the print and web option because it seemed like a better deal compared to that print only option. Again, it doesn't make any sense and it's not necessarily rational, but people don't always think, rationally. And I know with pricing, people are building spreadsheets and having a lot of conversations around that, but being aware of a lot of these cognitive biases that we all have is important when you're coming up with your pricing. And because of these biases, I think it's really important to test these. Do A/B test. And also, if you can, try and test only one change at one time. If you change a lot of different variables, you might see an increase in revenue, but one of those factors might have actually decreased revenue, and you're going to be sub-optimizing. And also, I think it's really important to understand that just because somebody did something and it worked well, even a competitor, it doesn't mean that if you do it, it's going to work well for you too. So it's important to test all of these changes on your own product and even retest it, after a year or 2 years, because consumers change, the marketplace changes, there's different expectations and behaviors. So in summary, here are the three main takeaways I would say, from this webinar. One, as we learned with airlines, it's really important to create different prices to fully monetize different segments and maximize revenue. It's important to be aware of the cognitive biases that can influence how customers perceive and make purchases in your product. And because of that, it's really important to test and isolate price changes to see if your pricing is successful. And once again, feel free to reach out to me. You can add me on LinkedIn. My full name is Sreetham Das. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have and hope you found this webinar very useful as you kind of think about pricing for your own products.